I was married to Claire for 5 years, and I once believed our marriage was built on a solid foundation: communication, respect, and genuine affection. We weren't perfect, but we had chosen a life together where our careers took priority over starting a family. I ran a small technical consulting firm, while Claire thrived in digital marketing. I thought we shared one clear vision, that we were an unbreakable team. Yet life had its own plans. Claire's older sister, Madeline, was about 8 years her senior. At 37, she had been married to Robert, a man who was quiet, reserved, but always cordial. For years, Madeline and Robert had longed for a child. They embarked on every possible treatment: IVF, artificial insemination, hormonal therapies, and even alternative remedies. But heartbreak followed heartbreak. Each miscarriage added to the weight of despair that not only devastated Madeline, but cast a long, painful shadow over our entire family. I didn't know much about the complicated world of infertility, but I watched as Claire's tears fell in secret. When she talked about Madeline, her voice would shake, and she even drifted away from friends whose lives included children, as the pain was unbearable. I knew she longed to help her sister, to help mend the seemingly endless cycle of loss. I did my utmost to support her, even as the situation grew heavier with each passing day. One quiet evening, Claire sat beside me, her expression layered with uncertainty and sorrow. With her eyes fixed on the floor, before finally meeting mine, she whispered, "Nick, I need to talk to you about something." I set aside my work immediately, sensing the gravity of the moment. "What's going on, babe?" I asked gently. After a deep, steadying breath, she revealed, She asked me to be her surrogate." Those words hit me like a lightning bolt. I blinked, unable to immediately process what I'd heard. "Wait, what? She wants you to be a surrogate?" I managed to choke out, my voice heavy with disbelief. Claire nodded slowly as she explained. Madeline and Robert had discussion after discussion. With her frozen eggs still on hold and Robert ready to contribute, they believed Claire was the last hope, someone healthy enough to carry the child. "I'm in excellent health, Nick," she said, voice trembling with both hope and pain. "I agreed to think it over, but I need you to know how important this is." My mind spun, and my stomach churned in knots. This request was enormous, completely unexpected, a decision that could forever alter our lives. "That's a huge decision, Claire. Are you absolutely sure about this?" I asked, my concern blending with confusion. With eyes glistening with emotion, she replied, "I can't stand watching Madeline suffer anymore. She's been through too much. I just want to help her have a family, a chance at happiness that seems so far out of reach right now." I felt the weight of her plea settle over us. Claire had always been empathetic, driven by love and a selfless desire to help. Yet this proposal was unlike anything I'd ever dreamed of facing. "I understand why you want to help, but this is incredibly complicated. What does this mean for us? For our future together?" I asked, my voice quivering with worry. Her gaze turned vulnerable, and after a pause she said, "I don't know yet, Nick. I just want you to know that I need you to be honest about how you feel. I'm not asking for an immediate decision. I just can't bear the thought of seeing Madeline lose hope." I squeezed her hand gently, feeling both the love and the storm of emotions roiling inside me. "You're right. This is huge, and we both need time to think," I murmured, though a foreboding feeling told me that nothing would ever be the same. Legally, our country forbids surrogate gestation, and while no formal rules exist, Madeline had promised that this would be a quiet family arrangement, an act born purely out of love between sisters. From the start, I wasn't comfortable with the notion. I had dreamed of Claire's first pregnancy as something shared by us, a miraculous result of our own love. The idea of turning her body into a vessel for someone else's child felt wrong, as if all I had to do was sign off on a decision that wasn't truly ours. "Claire, I'm not sure this is right," I confessed one evening after she explained it yet again. Sitting across our kitchen table, her determined yet worried eyes met mine. "Nick, I understand this is hard, but if we don't try, Madeline might never experience motherhood. I can't watch her be destroyed by this endless pain." I struggled to find words. "This is happening too fast. You're asking me to agree to something that feels forced. What about us? I want our child to be our own." Her hand reached out, tenderly covering mine. Nick, this is just once. After this, we can plan for our own family. Think of it as a rehearsal, a temporary sacrifice to save someone we both love. Despite that promise, my doubts lingered. Pregnancy isn't something you can rehearse. It's raw, real, and irrevocable. Over time, the pressure built inside me until I turned to my mother for counsel. You should support Claire, she advised with a calm certainty that stunned me. What she's doing is noble, a true act of love. Her unexpected support forced me to confront the idea that perhaps this selfless gesture was meant to be, even though it felt as if the entire decision had been prearranged, leaving me little room to choose. With the combined pressure from my family and Claire's endless pleading, I eventually conceded, albeit with reservations. I trust you, Claire, I said, but we must do everything by the book. No shortcuts. Everything must be handled professionally. Claire reassured me that they would visit a reputable clinic. They'd collect Madeline's eggs, use Robert's sperm, fertilize them, and then implant the embryo properly. The professional approach eased some of my unease, if only a fraction. Weeks later, Claire's joyful announcement came. She was pregnant. The news electrified the whole family. Madeline wept tears of gratitude as she embraced Claire, thanking her for granting her a chance at motherhood. Even Robert, though visibly uneasy, smiled in his own reserved way. Family plans were set, a celebratory dinner was arranged, toasts would be made, and each moment promised a bright new beginning. Despite the persistent doubts swirling in my mind, I chose to share in their happiness, determined not to let my own uncertainty mar the moment. For the next 6 months, the pregnancy seemed to unfold without major complications. Claire glowed with a radiant beauty, and every family gathering was filled with hope. Madeline treated Claire like royalty, buying her clothes, accompanying her to checkups, sometimes even paying for prenatal massages. Our once fractured family felt united, and even Robert began to engage more, chatting with us, helping out where he could. For a time, I allowed myself to believe that maybe we had done something right, that we had managed to ease a deep-rooted pain. But as the months passed, I began to notice subtle changes in Claire. Not in her physical appearance. She still looked as radiant as ever, but in her mood and spirit. She grew increasingly irritable and distant. Minor disagreements soon escalated into bitter arguments. One day it was about the tone of her voice, the next about something as trivial as the type of bread we bought. At first, I chalked it up to hormonal changes mixed with the emotional strain of acting as a surrogate. But soon an unsettling intuition crept in, a sense that something was not as it seemed. Then came the night of the big fight. I barely recall what sparked it at first. The details now seem trivial. But this time, Claire didn't just argue. She stormed out of the house, taking her car keys and leaving behind her phone and belongings. I sat on the couch, numb and overwhelmed, desperate to understand what was happening. Later, as I struggled with the silence of an empty house, her phone began to buzz. Normally, I prided myself on trusting her, never prying into her personal space. Yet in that heavy moment, I couldn't help but grab the phone. I entered the old password she used to use, and what I saw on the screen froze me in place. There was a message from Robert. Yes, Robert, Madeline's husband, who was also the biological father of the child Claire was carrying. The message read simply, "Do you want us to see each other?" Its cold, unadorned tone pierced through me. I hesitated, hoping it might be something as innocuous as a reminder about a medical appointment. But then I scrolled upward and discovered more messages that were far more intimate. One read, "Sometimes I imagine keeping the baby, and with you, we'd be happy." It was a message from Claire, sent less than a week ago. My heart pounded as I saw more. Terse texts from Robert, sweet yet insistent notes from Claire, pleas, declarations of longing, hints of something more than a surrogate arrangement. Each message confirmed a truth I never wanted to face. In the privacy of our home, behind the guise of a surrogate pregnancy, Claire and Robert had been nurturing a secret affair. All along, under the pretext of helping her sister, they had allowed their forbidden closeness to blossom. The shock and betrayal hit me like a freight train. I felt as if the very ground beneath me was crumbling. A violent rage surged through my veins. I wanted to shatter the phone, to tear up every message, to obliterate every memory of our shared past and the trust I'd once held dear. I grabbed my keys and left the house without looking back, my mind reeling as I drove aimlessly through the night. Eventually, I arrived at my best friend Julian's place. I confided in him softly, half expecting judgment, but he only listened. Handing me a cold beer, he said quietly, "Don't do anything rash now. You're too hot to ruin your life. Calm down, collect yourself, and when you're ready, reclaim what's yours." That night I couldn't sleep as the images of Claire's secret affair haunted every thought. I thought of the way she'd looked into my eyes while carrying Robert's child, of the family dinners, and of Madeline's desperate hope for motherhood. A hope that had been turned into a farce. When I finally returned home, Claire acted as if nothing had changed, greeting me in the kitchen with a curt, "Did you have dinner?" I offered a weak excuse and retreated to my room. The anger and hurt coiled inside me, fueling a single dark purpose: to gather the undeniable evidence. Later that night, after Claire had gone into the shower, I seized her phone again and methodically documented everything. Screenshots of messages, photos, even recordings of voice notes. I stored them in an encrypted folder and backed them up, knowing that soon the truth would have to come out, even if it shattered our already fragile family. The following days, filled with the heavy anticipation of an upcoming baby shower, I maintained a facade of calm. Every relative, every family member, from my in-laws to my distant aunts and uncles, remained blissfully unaware of the brewing storm. All the while I wrestled with my internal turmoil, feeling as if I wore a mask that only concealed the anguish beneath. The baby shower unfolded in the serene garden of our in-laws' home. A projector was set up to display heartwarming images of Claire's pregnancy, and Robert was scheduled to give a speech filled with gratitude for the miracle they'd achieved. As he took the microphone, I covertly replaced the presentation file with one of my own. A montage of damning screenshots accompanied by soft, haunting instrumental music. When Robert's speech began, the room fell into an uneasy hush. The first message flashed on the screen: "I would like to keep the baby, and with you, we would be happy." A few nervous chuckles passed, and Robert himself appeared confused. Then more messages followed, each one more explicit, until a final image, unmistakable despite pixelation, sent the room spiraling into chaos. Claire erupted in a fury, a raw, desperate outburst as she screamed that the images were doctored, that someone wanted to destroy her life. Madeline cried inconsolably, fleeing the scene as family members were left stunned, torn between disbelief and horror. In the ensuing commotion, my mother-in-law fainted, and an ambulance had to be called. The baby shower, meant to be a celebration of new beginnings, had devolved into a public scandal that tore our family apart. In the days that followed, the head of the family, a motley group of relatives who once prided themselves on unity, convened, desperate to regain control of the situation. It was then that I learned the extent of the betrayal. Madeline had already asked Robert for a divorce, claiming she could never live with a man who not only betrayed her, but also got my wife pregnant. The revelation that Claire was in love with Robert, that their affair had been more than a momentary lapse, cut deeper than any infidelity I could have imagined. One uncle remarked, "It wasn't love, it was manipulation," and I saw in Madeline's tearful silence that she could no longer bear the weight of this deception. I realized then that I could not continue living a lie. The next day, I started divorce proceedings with Claire. With my heart broken beyond repair, I knew I could never look at her without remembering every secret she had concealed. But what about the baby? None of us, Madeline, Robert, or even Claire, wanted it. There was never going to be a future for a child born out of betrayal, and so, after consultations with lawyers, both families agreed that the baby would be given up for adoption. It was an agonizing decision, but one that seemed necessary to prevent another life from inheriting the scars of our family's tragedy. Before all of this could be resolved, the unimaginable happened. Just days before the baby's birth, Madeline, overwhelmed by heartbreak and betrayal, took her own life. The news struck me like a hammer blow. I collapsed onto the sofa, my hands trembling uncontrollably as the world around me went dark for a heartbeat. Claire plunged into a crisis, blaming herself incessantly, while soon after she was admitted to a psychiatric center with a diagnosis of severe depressive disorder accompanied by psychotic episodes. Meanwhile, Robert vanished without a trace, reportedly catching a flight to Spain with no explanation or goodbye. The baby was born healthy, but the child was soon adopted by a childless couple from another state. A bittersweet twist that left me wondering if, in some strange way, he was granted a second chance. In the quiet moments that followed, I questioned whether exposing the truth so publicly was the right choice. Perhaps a more private confrontation could have saved Madeline, spared her fate. Yet once the fuse was lit, there was no turning back. I still carry the guilt of how that truth was unearthed. The memories of Madeline's devastated face and the vacant, tear-filled eyes haunt me in my dreams. As difficult as it is to relive these events, I share my story in hopes that you, dear listener, find some meaning in our broken lives. We all face choices that change everything, and sometimes the path we choose leaves scars we're never fully able to heal. If you felt moved by this story, if it stirred something within you, please consider subscribing to our channel for more raw, unfiltered stories. Leave a comment or a like. Your reaction means more than you might ever know. Thank you for joining me on this painful journey through betrayal, heartache, and the relentless search for truth. Your support and understanding help keep the conversation alive, even in the darkest of times.